Calendar item number 1, Flatbush Avenue bid expansion, N230160BDK. This is an application by the Department of Small Business Services pursuant to Section 25405A of Chapter 4, Title 25 of the New York City Administrative Code to expand and amend the Flatbush Avenue Business Improvement District in Brooklyn Community Districts 9 and 14. Community Board 14 approved this application on January 9th, 2023. Will the applicant's representative please state your name and present this application?
Hello. Hi, I'm Lauren Elvers Collins, the Executive Director of the Flatbush Avenue bid and the Church Avenue bid. So we have, the slideshow is actually from Community Board 14, which is the most recent version of the PowerPoint, same information. So next. This is about the proposed merger of the Flatbush Avenue bid and Church Avenue bid. Technically, it's an expansion, but we think of it as a merger because practically that's what it's going to end up being. The two bids cover roughly 1.5 miles of commercial properties on Church Avenue and Flatbush Avenue. We represent a combined 450 businesses, 282 properties, spread out over 477 storefronts. Currently, we share office, staff, and almost all of our programming. So we provide a number of services, which I'll touch on later, and this proposal is mostly administrative, since we're already functioning as if we were one bid. Next. What is a bid? There's 76 bids in New York City. All the businesses and properties within the geographic boundaries of each district will make up that bid's members, and as well as funds coming from grants and sponsorships. Besides that, we get an annual assessment. So the Church Avenue assessment, which is paid through taxes, is $203,000, and Flatbush Avenue is $386,000. Under this proposal, we're not asking for an increase, but rather just want to combine the two current amounts, which places us roughly in the middle of all the bids throughout New York City. Next. The bids are managed by boards of directors made mostly of Flatbush property owners as well as some business owners, and the boards decide the direction of the bids. The boards also include representatives appointed by Mayor Adams, New York City Controller Lander, Brooklyn Borough President Reynoso, and City Council Member Joseph. And the rep through Mayor Adams, through the Department of Small Business Services, is Leslie Velasquez, who is sitting here. Next. I'll skip through these quickly. We do community events of all types, Santa events, Thanksgiving luncheon, and next. Sanitation and beautification is extremely important. We just installed a bunch of city bins to get containerized garbage. Next. Public safety, we're actually lead person for Brooklyn South on the mayor's Quality of Life Task Force, and also co-chair of Quality of Life Committee. We have more things coming up in that area. Next. So why merge? Number one, it saves staff time. We've estimated about 725 staff hours a year are used doing something the second time, doing the second QuickBooks, the second social media. This would really consolidate that. Also, economies of scale. Some costs are shared, but some of them we do have to pay for twice, and being able to present a unified message to stakeholders. Next. The proposed merge bid will be mostly in Community Board 14 and Sanitation District 14, as well as the 70th Precinct. And one block face, Flatbush Avenue from Parkside to Clarkson on the east side of the street, is in Community Board and Sanitation District 9, and then the 71st Precinct. So we've reached out to both. We presented at CB9 prior to CB14, and they also voted in favor. Next. Next, I don't know why this one's cut in two. No, it's mine. It's something about the way it was set up. So these are the services the merge bid would provide. It's the same services we have currently. In some cases, one of the bids presented or provides slightly less, so we went for the higher level of services. So we have supplemental sanitation, public safety, marketing, holiday lights, economic development, and administration. Next. The proposed budget, as I mentioned, would be a combination of the two current assessments. So this does not take into account any grants. We currently, since this was approved, we got $165,000 in city grants as well as a state grant. So this current one, based on the assessment, is supplemental sanitation. I need to look at this one. Of $210,448. Public safety, $67,466. Marketing, $107,550. Holiday lights, $50,400. Economic development, $43,895. Admin and governance, $109,241, bringing a total of $589. And just so you know, the salaries are worked within that. The template that we have to provide for the merger process doesn't allow for a separate line for salaries. So they're worked into this based on how much time we use for each of those areas. Next. The new name of the bid, as voted on by the board after a lot of work, will be the Church Flatbush Community Alliance, which also reflects an expansion of what we've been doing as far as partnerships with schools and local groups. Next. This is always a key question for members. Will bid members' assessments change? Most bid members will not see a significant change. A few of them will, and we're reaching out to them separately, unless their assessment is going down, in which case I think they'll be fine. But for Church Avenue, the current median assessment per year is $1,263, and the average is $2,029. On Flatbush, the median is $1,165, and the average $1,969. And the merged would be with a median of $1,125, and an average of $1,989. Next. It's a lot of words. This is the formula. So this is really important to us and to the businesses and the properties, because this is what determines how much assessment each property pays, since it always adds up to the same amount. So for commercial properties, 60% of each property's assessment will be based on footage facing Flatbush or Church Avenues, and 40% based on commercial square footage. If the current property does not front on either avenue, then we would use whichever side street they front. There are a few properties on side streets. Corner properties, this is actually a question that the VP's office brought up at the last meeting, I believe. Corner properties at the intersection of Church and Flatbush who are eligible to pay an assessment will use the longest frontage, and that's only one corner. The other two, or two of them are already in the Flatbush Avenue bid, so that doesn't become an issue. And the final corner is the Flatbush Reformed Church, so they're exempt. Properties located on Church from East 16th to Coney Island Avenue will receive sanitation and public safety services at half the level, because that section of the bid is only on the north side of the street. The other side is completely residential. So they also will pay a lower assessment, roughly 80% of what they otherwise would pay. This is a continuation of the way the district plan for Church Avenue bid currently is set up. Vacant land. 60% of the assessment for vacant properties will be based on footage the same as for commercial properties, but 40% would be based on lot size, because there obviously are not commercial, there's no commercial square footage. Once the property is ready to rent, whether it's rented or not, then it shifts into that first category. And the final part is commercial condos. In addition to individual commercial condos square footage, frontage for commercial condos within the building will be determined proportionally based on the size of the condos, and that's something new since the district plan for Church Avenue was first written. Next. What's next? Again, apologies, this is a little bit out of date. But next are, we have 3 Zoom calls with members, for bid members, which we've set up at 3 different times. City planning meeting is next Wednesday, virtually. And there may be other hearings, but I don't believe so. Leslie might know. I don't know if I think that would be it. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and I'm available to answer any questions.
Okay, so we have just one question in 2 parts. Please clarify how this proposal would strengthen service delivery to the affected businesses, and what new and larger initiatives would the managing entity undertake across the expanded district?
Okay. So how it will strengthen is just to make our time, to free up a lot of staff time that we currently spend doing things twice. It really has kind of bogged down us getting new things done. There have been times we've had to pass up opportunities because we were busy getting insurance a second time or filling out more lengthy things like annual report, things like that we've had to do twice. As far as new initiatives, we right now have more grants than we have ever had before. So it's a very exciting time, and we really look forward to being able to do more with those. We have the Small Big Grant from SBS, so $100,000 for Church Avenue and $50,000 for Flatbush. And under that, we're able to pilot a security patrol, which is actually probably going to start on February 1st, and see how that works and work out the kinks. We've expanded our sanitation services, which until we got this grant, actually, we were only providing one worker to clean Church Avenue 4 days a week. This is an additional to, of course, to the city's work. And 2 people on Flatbush Avenue 6 days a week. Now we were able to bump both up to 7 days. Under the merger, we have new branding, which is very exciting, and have been able to put in for supplemental merchandise that will help really get the brand out there to people in a way that we have never been able to do. We've never been able to produce that because we haven't had the budget combined.
Great. We will now call for testimony on this application from members of the public in attendance tonight. Please note that all comments are limited to 2 minutes. Seeing none, we will now move to close this application.
Please call the next calendar item.
Okay, calendar item 1 is now closed. Calendar item 2, Paperific rezoning, 220470ZMK, 220471ZRK, 220472ZSK. This is an application by Paperific Supermarket, Inc., pursuant to sections 197C and 201 of the New York City Charter, affecting 25 tax lots, of which 4 are applicant-owned, fronting the west side of 15th Avenue, as well as 37th and 38th Streets. The applicant seeks a zoning map amendment to change the project area from M12, M21, and R6 to C4-4A and R6B districts, a zoning text amendment to establish a coterminous mandatory inclusionary housing area, and a special permit pursuant to ZR Section 74-681 to allow development over a right-of-way where elevated transit service has been discontinued. These actions would enable a 5-story, 103,512 square foot building with a 19,985 square foot ground floor supermarket and commercial office uses above at 1459 38th Street in Brooklyn Community District 12. The building's cellar would contain 63 vehicular parking spaces accessible via 37th Street. Community Board 12 approved this application on December 27th, 2022. Will the applicant's representative please state your name and present this application?
Good evening. My name is Ellie Gewertz. I'm from Davidoff, Hutcher, and Citron, and I'm the attorney representing the applicant on this project. I'm joined here by my colleague Jeff Leb, who's our government relations specialist as well.
If you would please give us one moment to try to get the presentation up. Apologies for the technical.
You may resume.
Waiting for the presentation. Great. So again, we are here representing the applicant in the paperific rezoning application. The address is 1459, 1463 38th Street in Community District 12, the Borough Park section of Brooklyn. As Ms. Gusenfeld already alerted everyone, the Community Board unanimously approved this application back in December. Good, next slide, please. So here we list, this application comprises 3 separate land use actions. The first one being a zoning map amendment to rezone block 5348, lots 15, 17, 49, 54, 118, 119, 41, 42, 44 through 48 from M12, M21, and R6 to C44A, and lots 55 through 66 from M21 to R6B. And we'll have a map coming up so everyone can visualize where these lots are located. The second land use action is a zoning text amendment to establish the entire project area as an MIH area. We are proposing to map MIH options 1 and 2 over the entire development site. And third, this is a special permit pursuant to section 74-681 to permit development within the former Culver L right-of-way pertaining to lots 15 and 17. Those are 2 lots in our development site that front 37th Street. Formerly, there used to be an elevated transit line known as the Culver L rapid transit line that ran above 37th Street. It ran from 9th Avenue to the west to Ditmas Avenue to the east. It ran in the mid-20th century. It was demolished the service terminated in 1975, and that elevated structure was demolished in 1985. Additionally, at ground level, the South Brooklyn Railroad ran along 37th Street through our tax lots 15 and 17. That ran that was for freight operations. That ran from Fort Hamilton Parkway to McDonald Avenue through 37th Street. That was discontinued in the early 1980s, and that track was paved over in the late 1980s. So because there were these transit right-of-ways that ran through our development site, we are required also to pursue this special permit, which would allow us to develop on those lots as well. And all of these actions are meant to facilitate the proposed development, which is a 5-story, 512 square foot commercial building. It would contain a newly renovated paperific supermarket, which currently exists on the zoning lot, that would remain on the ground floor, and floors 2 through 5 would contain office use, so it would be a fully commercial building. Next slide, please. Again, just to orient ourselves, so the project site is on 38th Street and 37th Street. 15th Avenue is to our immediate east, and 14th Avenue to the west. And we're in Community District 12, Councilmember Shahina Hanif's district. Next slide. So here's an aerial view of our site. So the yellow portion here, that's the site that's the portion that we're proposing to rezone to C44A. So the portion that's 100 feet west of 15th Avenue, that's currently zoned R6. That's a product of a rezoning back in 2007 known as the King's Material rezoning. That was meant to facilitate development of a 6-story residential building. That building was never built. Then 100 feet west of 15th Avenue is M12, and then 100 feet beyond that is M21. You see it's a mixed-use area containing light industrial uses, some commercial uses, and residential uses. You'll note Brooklyn Square, which is a 6-story mega office development that's immediately north of us, and to our east you see Dome Playground is 1 block to the east, as well as the McDonald Avenue F Culver line to the east as well. Next slide. Here's our tax map, which depicts our rezoning area. So all those lots, again, that front 15th Avenue, those are non-applicant owned sites. Those are part of our rezoning area to have a more comprehensive zoning district. So those sites that are immediately along 15th Avenue are currently zoned R6. We're proposing to rezone those to C44A. Then our rezoning, our development site includes lots 15, 17, 54, and 49. The Paperific Supermarket is on lot 49. Those are rezoned from M12, M21 to C44A. And then west of that, those are row homes that are currently non-conforming uses. They are currently in an M21 zoning district, where residential uses are not permitted. So our proposal to rezone those homes to R6B would essentially clean up the zoning map and would reflect the as-built context on the street, because in R6B districts, residential uses are permitted. Next slide. Here's just a land use map depicting the surrounding uses. You see in red, those are the commercial and buildings that are around us. In yellow, you see the residential buildings, and you see again Dome Playground to our east. Next slide. Here's our zoning map, just giving you a sense of the existing zoning that we already discussed. Next slide. This is our zoning change map showing that we're rezoning the C44A 270 feet deep from 15th Avenue along 37th Street and 220 feet deep from 15th Avenue along 38th Street. And then beyond that, we'd be rezoning 12 row homes that all of those lots are 1,800 square feet from M21 to R6B, bringing those homes into conformance. Next slide, please. This is an old Sanborn map, I know it's hard to see, but we're showing you the former transit right-of-way. This is showing where the tracks used to run that went through lots 15 and 17. If you zoom in, you would see that these lots are only showing that they're 150 feet deep, this block from 38th Street to 37th Street, and currently the block is 200 feet deep, so it demonstrates how the transit right-of-way ran directly through our development site along 37th Street. Next slide, please. And here, those are the two lots that requires the special permit for the transit right-of-way, which are part of our development site. Next slide. We'll just go through some of the existing conditioned photographs. So this is the Paperific Supermarket as it exists today. You see it's like a tall one-story building. It's approximately 36 feet tall. This is on 38th Street, approximately 100 feet deep from 15th Avenue. Next slide. So the Paperific Supermarket, the entrance is that blue portion, and part of our development site is that small one-story white building. That's lot 54, which is part of our development site. That building is currently used for storage and purposes for the Paperific Supermarket, but it's not for patrons and customers of the supermarket. Next slide. This is the back of the building along 37th Street. This is looking at lot 15. We note that there is flooding here, that there's pondage. That's something that we're going to be working to improve on. This street, 37th Street, has been neglected for years, and this application, once we go for a building permit, we'll be required to submit a builder's pavement plan. There's no sidewalk currently along 37th Street, so we'd be constructing a new sidewalk. We'd be repairing or resetting catch basins, working with DOT, DEP to improve the condition here along 37th Street, and that's something that excites us about this project, which could be a benefit to the community as a whole. Next slide, please. This is the back of this is the 37th Street frontage. This is lot 17, currently used for storage and loading purposes for the Paperific Supermarket. Next slide. This is a view of the project area. Just zoom back of 37th Street frontage. You see there is no sidewalk here along the southern side of 37th Street. Next slide. This is 37th Street looking west. So you see Brooklyn Square to our immediate north. This is a 6-story, 442,000 square foot office complex, which is fully tenanted. This has been a very popular building for local Community Board 12 residents, people who want to work locally in the area, and we'd be building off of that commercial office space that they have here with our proposal as well. Next slide. This is the corner of 37th Street and 15th Avenue, looking at, we're facing west. Next slide. This is 15th Avenue. There's only one building here that was formerly part of the King's rezoning area. This is a 1-story contractor's warehouse on 15th Avenue between 37th and 38th Street. Next slide. This is moving further south, moving down 15th Avenue towards 38th Street. As you see, there's not much development here that the King's rezoning never materialized into the residential building that was contemplated under that rezoning. Next slide. This is the corner building that is not owned by King's. This is lot 48. This is a 3-story. There's a synagogue on the ground floor with rabbi's quarters and rectory on the upper floors. Again, this is not applicant owned. Next slide. Moving further now along 15th Avenue, here you see the synagogue with our paperific supermarket to the immediate west. Next slide. This is a view of the row homes that we're rezoning from M21 to R6B. You see they're all 2-story, 1-family row homes that line this portion, this north side of 38th Street. Next slide. Another view of the row homes. Next slide. We can quickly run through our proposed plans. So this is a rendering of our proposed development. You see it's a 5-story building with 63 feet tall. We're proposing this is the 38th Street elevation. The building will be comprised of mostly brick materials. They'll have these large vertical windows with modern accents. There's going to be 2 dedicated entrances and exit for the paperific supermarket, and to the far west, you'll have the dedicated entrance for the office users along 38th Street. Next slide. This is our site plan. We're proposing all parking is going to be in the back of the lot along 37th Street. We're proposing to have 63 parking spaces in the cellar and a dedicated loading berth along 37th Street, intentionally keeping all the loading and industrial type uses along 37th Street, keeping within the character of 37th Street, and bringing all loading and trucks off of the street. Next slide. Again, this is our zoning analysis. So we are proposing to increase the size of the paperific supermarket from currently 15,000 square feet to 19,985 square feet. That would enable the supermarket for much needed improvements. If you went to the supermarket today, you'll see it's very small. The aisles are narrow. It would enable the supermarket to add takeout counters serving meat and fish and fresh baked goods, which is something that some of the local competitors are doing. So this rezoning would enable that expansion of the supermarket, and then above that, we'd be proposing 84,500 square feet of office space and 63 parking spaces in the cellar. Next slide. Here you see the cellar plan. Next slide. First floor plan. In yellow, you see that's where the supermarket would be, and blue is the office lobby along 38th Street. Next slide. This is the second floor plan. So the second floor will be dedicated to paperific.com's operation. That is a growing, ever-surging part of their business now, where they receive a lot of online orders. So they want to have a dedicated operation in this building to help continue to grow that part of their business. So it contains sales associates, data engineers, whatever they need to run that e-commerce side of their business, which has been ever surging during the pandemic, and we anticipate that will only continue within the next few years. Next slide. This is the third floor. As you see, we're providing terraces on all the floors. Next slide. Fourth floor. The next slide. and 5th floor. So these floors 3 through 5 would be for, we're looking to have a co-working model for these floors, modeled after WeWork, Regis, those types of uses. Again, trying to meet post-pandemic needs with people who want to leave their house to work, but they don't want to have to commute into Manhattan anymore. So we're building off of the success in Brooklyn Square and providing local regional office space for people who want to work locally, which we see is a current trend throughout New York City. This is our sections. We're again proposing 63-foot tall, 5 stories, setbacks beginning at the 3rd floor, trying to create a building that blends harmoniously within the surrounding context. Next slide. And again, this is our 38th Street rendering elevation. And next slide. And this is the back of 37th Street. You see there's the loading berth. That's where the roll-down gate is. There's a special enclosed portion for bike parking. We're proposing 35 bicycle spaces. And then you see to the far right there, that's the entrance to the cellar for the 63 vehicle parking spaces. That concludes our presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, thank you. We have several questions. So the first is a question in 3 parts. The requested C4-4A district permits residential development at R7A density. Therefore, please clarify. First, the rationale for seeking this rezoning as opposed to mapping a non-residential district that would facilitate this project, such as M1-5.
So we chose C4-4A for multiple reasons. First of all, we wanted to create a regional commercial center, and C4-4A districts are meant to promote regional commercial centers more than manufacturing districts. We also thought that because to make this have a stronger land use rationale, we knew we'd be including the lots along 15th Avenue in this proposal. The C4-4A district allows for greater flexibility along 15th Avenue. It allows for, if the owner there did want to continue to do residential, which he can currently do under the R6, he would now have to provide affordable housing under the MIH text amendment. It also allows for more community facility uses. If a school ever wanted to go there, that's something that an M district would not permit. And we thought that the C4-4A district was an appropriate density here for the commercial because we were pursuing a commercial building here. C4-4A allows a 4.0 FAR. We thought M1-5, which would allow, I believe, a 5.0 FAR, would be a little bit too high for this area considering the surrounding context. So for all those reasons, we thought C4-4A was a better fit here.
Part 2, what guarantees, and I understand you've gone into this in detail, but given what the proposed zoning allows, what guarantees that the development would be constructed as a fully commercial building?
So again, as with any zoning map amendments in New York City, you are proposing to change the zoning map, and your proposed development is illustrative. That's how New York City rezoning works. That being said, our client, the applicant here, is a supermarket operator. This is what they want to do. This is their family business. They've been operating a supermarket on the site for over 40 years. They have no intention to be building residential here. They want to keep this a supermarket, and in order to help with the community, with the need for more office space locally within Borough Park in particular, they are dedicated and committed to keeping this an office building with ground floor supermarket. This has always been their vision. We understand that C4-4A does allow for residential uses, but again, that's the nature of rezonings in New York City, that you're asking to change the zoning map amendment, but this is our client's and the applicant's intention throughout the entire process.
Thank you. Now, I understand you've received letters of support from property owners residing in the row houses
Correct.
along 38th Street that would be rezoned to R6B. Accordingly, have you reached out to property owners along 15th Avenue to notify them of the proposal and its implications for those potential development sites?
Yes. So as I mentioned before, every lot along 15th Avenue except for that corner building of that synagogue and rectory on the corner of 15th and 38th is owned by the same owner. That's the King's Material owner. We have reached out to him. They are very supportive. He's very supportive of this proposal.
Okay. The development site is located in a fresh zone. Please elaborate what zoning and/or financing incentives would be sought to facilitate the new paperific supermarket.
So we were not, when we initiated this application, this actually was not in a fresh zone. That was approved in December 2021, and we started this application back in December 2019. We were not we're not anticipating going for any fresh benefits here. Again, if that's something the applicant deems that it could benefit him, that's something that perhaps he can look into, but it's not our intention to be pursuing any fresh benefits here.
So another question in two parts. Please elaborate what types of tenants would occupy the proposed office space, specifically whether a big box chain store has been contemplated, and what efforts would be made to recruit small manufacturing businesses.
So we've been in touch with, as I mentioned before, I can't say specifically which businesses, but we're trying to for the 3rd through 5th floors to be following a co-working space kind of model, whether it's WeWork, Regis, Green Desk. Those are the types of office space that we've been pursuing here and trying to model after those businesses. We think that floor plan and those models are perfect for the types of business owners and entrepreneurs that we're seeking to be occupying this space. We're not looking for major corporations to be operating in this building. It's more for the local community, for people who currently work out of their house, people who have their own businesses, whether it's selling merchandise on Amazon or any small types of businesses, for people who want to get out of their house, have a place, a dedicated space to work, but not have to commute into Manhattan for that office space. So that's who we're targeting for floors 3 through 5. We're not specifically targeting light manufacturing users for this, as it is a typical office space, and we need it to be compatible with other uses within the building. But again, if a light manufacturing use that is compatible with other uses would be interested in the site, then we'd be obviously open to having them lease space in the building as well.
Can you say a little more about how you intend to target specifically the profile of entrepreneurs that you described? Sort of what's the plan, outreach to whom? Can you say a little more about that, please?
So the Paperific supermarket, first of all, they've been in this community for 40 years. They have a lot of people, connections, friends that they have. So people that are coming to the supermarket, they're speaking to their customers about what's going to be coming here and letting them know if people are interested in leasing space. We also have a team that we're as part of our applicant development team that has been reaching out to the companies that will provide this co-working space, and they have a network where they can reach out to the local community, however those companies operate, and they're going to be the ones that primarily are reaching out to the local community and finding those business owners, those entrepreneurs who would be looking for a space like this.
Okay, so just a couple more questions. One, given the challenging conditions on 37th Street specifically, one of the reasons we asked about C4 4A versus M15 is that manufacturing districts do not impose tree planting requirements for commercial developments. So if you could just elaborate on how you would balance the tree planting requirement with the need for maneuverability and navigability for the loading zones and the parking.
Yes, so actually, if you can go to the zoning analysis, I believe we addressed that in the zoning analysis. So sorry, go back. It's within the proposed plans. I believe it's this sheet. So if you see here within the zoning analysis, so there's one existing tree that we'd be keeping. We'd be planting one more along 37th Street, but again, away from the curb cuts, not, there's 100 feet of frontage here along 37th Street, so there's going to be planting one more tree there along 37th Street, and then the other 2 street trees that we'd be required, we'd be putting in the park, the DPR, Department of Parks and Recreation Fund, and we'd be providing those trees off-site. But we'd only be planting one more tree along 37th Street because we know we need to have access to both the loading berth and the cellar, the parking ramp that leads to the cellar for the vehicles.
Great. And our last question, given that this property will have a dual facade and again invoking those challenging flooding conditions, what sustainability and resiliency, specifically stormwater management, features would be implemented as part of the building's design?
So again, we're going to be working closely with DEP and DOT when we go for our building permits if the rezoning is approved. So we're going to be working with them, whatever they tell us that needs to be done here, we would comply in order to get our builder's pavement plan approved. We're anticipating that could entail resetting or repairing catch basins, if it's constructing rain gardens, whatever DEP and DOT, whatever they recommend here, whatever they would require for the builder's pavement plan to be approved, that's what we would be doing on the sustainability front.
Thank you. We will now call for testimony on this application from members of the public in attendance tonight. Seeing that there are none, we will now close calendar item number 2. And with calendar item number 2 having been closed, this ULURP public hearing is now closed. The Borough President will review these applications and submit our recommendations to the City Planning Commission, which will hold its hearing at a later date. As a reminder, viewers may submit comments to Ask Reynoso at brooklynbp.nyc.gov for the Borough President's consideration until Friday, January 20th. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.